all of the panelists, facilitators, the people that will be reading the questions from our Zoom. We just had a COVID-19 test and we all passed. So during the speaking time, we might move our mask down so you can understand and hear us a little bit better. My name is Jayln Roe, and I will be your facilitator for this evening. Many of you know that I have had 7 generations of family that grew up and lived here in Yellow Springs. So I'm always honored when I'm asked to do a public forum like this, because it's part of Yellow Springs culture, the way that we do things. I do have something that I'd like to share with you. It's called Appreciative Guidelines of Engagement for this forum. And during the Q&A panel discussion, I ask that you please keep your questions concise, brief, but comprehensive. You may ask a question of the individual panelists, or you can ask a question and have each of the panelists answer the same question. If you hear your question asked by someone else, let's don't do repeat questions, even though I know you can ask the question better. Okay? You guys, I'm really old school. I'm the Queen of Soul, Aretha Franklin, R-E-S-P-E-C-T. So I just ask that we all respect each other during this process. Yes, thank you. Please put your phone on silence or turn it off. If you do have to accept a phone call, I ask that you leave the room just so we don't get it interrupted. We have an audience here, full house. Come on down, it's not too late. And we also have an audience on Zoom. I'm going to turn it over to Josue to let you know the methodology of how we've gotten to this point so far with these 3 particular candidates, how they have gotten to this point. So Josue?
Thank you, Jayln. Good evening, everyone. Hi, welcome. It's nice to see folks back in person. Man, I haven't seen you 2 days in a row now. We were at the school board meeting yesterday. So welcome, everyone. I want to cover a few points. One is the process, how we got here. But first, let me start off with thanking a few folks. Thank you, candidates, for making time for going through this process, because it's been an extensive process. So I'm excited that you're all here. Thank you all for being here in person. I know with COVID and the changing situations, I myself am a lot of time to run out, but there are things that I just don't want to miss. The important things that are happening around us and that will continue to happen. And we all need to be involved in a productive manner. I want to thank the Citizen Committee. What's led this work, what's gotten us to today, has been the hard work of a citizen group. And I'll name it. We've got Jayln, that's here. Bill Randolph, Scott Osterholm, David Turner, there's David, Steve McQueen. These folks here have been part of the citizen group. We have folks that aren't able to make it here today in person. That includes Nia Brevik, Kate Hamilton, so many more that have participated in these meetings. TJ Turner, who's on the school board, and some others that have come into the group and out as time permitted. That included council members, Brian Housh, David Stokes, I'm sorry, Kevin Stokes, and Lisa Krieger. in a different time. So several people have been involved. So I want to thank them for their insights, helping define the process. Without them, we wouldn't be in this step. We wouldn't have learned so much about what's needed in this process without all of their participation. All right, so now I get into the process. How do we get here? We reviewed the group, and I, along with the group and other members in the community, we reviewed the qualifications for the job, the skills that we're looking in the individual. I personally spent a lot of time studying the work of, most recently, Carlson, Roe, and Key, and what made them great chiefs. I also studied the work of Scott, Hale, and Pettiford, and I try to find what were the common thread that made these individuals good at their job. And we studied their work. So that influenced the characteristics, attributes that we were looking in the candidates. So with that in mind, we reviewed over 30 applications. 30 applications and 10 to 10 final applicants. So final slate to further evaluate the actual cover letters, we have particular questions, and then we narrow them down to 4. And last week we had 4 candidates. The 4th candidate is not able to join us tonight because very talented individual took a job offer at another jurisdiction. So the 3 candidates we have here, thank you all. These are the final candidates. So it's been an extensive process. It's an extensive process from last year, around August, that Carlson resigned. And Carlson, I think it's important to acknowledge all the work that Carlson did, because Carlson joined, he was part of the workforce prior to being appointed police chief, but he took over during a tumultuous time. It was right after New Year's Eve. And Carlson did a lot of work around culture, to build team, build morale, and build a shared value system in the police force that was reflective of what the community values were and what the community wanted to see out of their police officers. So it's important to evaluate the work that others have done to help us make better. So we looked at these candidates through this lens of what has worked in the past and looking at your skill set and hope that they can build, continue to build the right framework like that. So that is, in a nutshell, the process. 30 candidates down to 10 and 4. So you guys ready? So I appreciate that you applied. I've gotten to learn a lot from reading your profiles and engaging with you. Appropriately taking the question.
Thank you. So how we're going to proceed, we're going to have, I want to give you a little insight. When I facilitate events such as this, I purposely do not read the bios of the candidates that we're talking to at the event, because I don't want, as a facilitator, to lean one way or the other in asking questions or directing the conversation. So I'll have each one of them introduce themselves, and they're going to give you, talk about a little bit about themselves and give you their opening statement. Now, they have 15 minutes to do that. And the reason why we moved it from 5 minutes to 15, you don't have to take off 15, by the way. But the reason why we wanted to move it from that, we don't want them to give you just their resume. We want to get a look at who they are. And so that time allows us to do that, allows them to do that for us. And there will be, where's our timekeeper? Where's David? Okay, here, this is David. And when you're getting close to your 15 minutes, 5 minutes out, he'll give you 5, all right? If you keep going, he's gonna do a little wrap up. And all that means is finish that thought, and then we'll move forward. You don't have to stop in the middle of a sentence. Finish your thought and then move forward. Now, I'd like us to hold the questions until each candidate has given their open comments, and then we'll open the floor up to panel questions. Well, one of the things that I would like you to say in your opening comments, I'd like you to tell us the most important thing that you think we should know about you, what you think is the most important thing that we need to know about you. Ready? Here we go.
Good evening. For most of you, I believe I have met and or engaged with you at some point in my time here at the Yellow Springs District. But if I have not, I'm Paige Burke, currently the interim chief. Just prior to that, I was the sergeant of the Yellow Springs Police Department, and prior to that, police officer. I got my associate's degree from Eastern Gateway Community College. That's in criminal justice. Acquired that in 2020. Prior to coming here to Yellow Springs, I worked in the asset protection industry. For those of you not familiar, just a brief overview. Essentially, that is operational best practices, theft resolution, anything that would add to the bottom line of the organization. Oh, sure. Is that better? Okay. And while in that field, I had in my last position, roughly 27 locations that I was responsible for. On the low end, I would manage about 15 employees. On the high end, probably about 20 to 30, depending on the time of year. Seasonal, obviously, we would get a lot more folks. I'm sure that topic will come up a little bit more. So, me personally, I am married. I've been married since 2012. My wife and I reside just 6 miles outside of town. That's in Fairborn, on the Fairfield. We have a wiener dog we love desperately. I'm a tourist. I don't know if that's kind of bio. And I just want to thank all you guys for the opportunity, not only here tonight, but the opportunity I've had for the last 4 months to serve the chief. Regardless of what happens, it's been an absolute honor, and it's been an outstanding opportunity for me to learn and grow. So thank you all for this way. Everyone for all the work this evening, and we'll continue to do this evening. So look forward to fielding your questions, and thank you for that.
Hi, my name is Pete Savage. A little bit about me. I'm 53 years old. I live in my Pittsburgh with my daughter and my daughter's mother. We have a shorty, 2-year-old shorty that we love to death. And kind of runs the household for us. I'm sorry. Okay. How's that? Okay. So, a little bit of me, I got 32 years of law enforcement experience. Started my career at West Carrollton Police Department. Prior to that, I was their police explorer president. I started the program with Nancy, and we made that program and went to the candidates and cadets that were in there, went to the police academy, and West Carrollton hired us. Was with West Carrollton until 93. 93, I went to Madison Township, just outside on the west side of Dayton. Worked there for 2 years, where I had the opportunity to go to Bellbrook. Bellbrook, I was in 95. Started off as a road patrol officer, was promoted to detective for 12 years. Investigated, general detective, investigated petty crimes all the way up to homicides, and numerous training and identity theft, suicides, homicides, John Reed and Associates, interviews and interrogations, basic things. I also took the role of property ring officer, was promoted to sergeant in 2015, where I took the supervisory role of midnight shift, and eventually took supervision of the second and third shift prior to the second shift sergeant passing away with esophageal cancer. At that time, I took on his roles and responsibilities along with mine, and also took on additional admin duties, with the scheduling and payroll overtime, special events, parades, and those. I supervised, went from managing an officer to the property room to supervising the property room. Then I left Elbrook, and I left Elbrook due to my feelings for more corporate policing to get to know the community and different cultures. And I went to UC Health at Westchester, and I'm currently the police officer there. And there I've taken over the investigation role and also the property room as well. And looking for using my training experience here at Jayln Roe.
I just think about everything. So people be very careful with the picture of moving to the side, and don't tap or, depending on things, because the right is the right thing. Okay. And then,
So, good afternoon. I'm going to stipulate that everyone up here is qualified, so I'm not going to bore you on all of that. But I've done all loss prevention, asset prevention, property room, all of the above. What I would like to address, Sylvain, I apologize. What I would like to address is how did we? And I don't want you all to view this as a history lesson. It is just a fact that there is criterion on how it is that we got to the point we are today. So if you look back in history, I believe on or about 1797, first department within the United States was formed, and that was formed in Illinois. With that thought in mind, the current commissioner, I would say chief, police, whatever the case may be, his name is, I call it Chief Ramsey, Charles Chuck Ramsey. I met this gentleman at the International Association of Chiefs of Police. And he was doing some things that were really real, that were really working. And so I started studying this guy. One of the things that he brought to the forefront is that when policing allegedly first started in 1797, it actually did. Go back to colonization. They had people that filled certain roles, and they walked up and down these unpaved streets, and to try to make sure, shaking doors, whatever the case may have been, to ensure that their communities were safe. They were unpaved. Okay, then we moved to a point in time during the slavery days, if you want to look at it that way, as to where people work on plantations, and they had the authority to go out and to find and arrest the people and bring back to the plantation slaves. Okay, we're going to fast forward to our so-called modern day society. In the 50s and 60s, civil unrest, people were marching out. As a matter of fact, I spoke with a lot of people, maybe perhaps some of you since yesterday, and that this was one of the places that provided safe haven for the slave. So, if we do a snapshot in time, who were the people who met on Bloody Sunday? Those people, the individuals, the people that were protesting. So, who met those people on that bridge in Southern Alabama? I submit to you, I've not always been proud of some of the things that police have done. If we move during that time, I believe, about perhaps 1968, we moved to Philadelphia, Mississippi, where Mr. Swarner, Mr. Goodman, Mr. Jayln, who is the person who falsely arrested those individuals, caused them to be incarcerated, refused to allow those people phone calls or visitors. In fact, this guy, when people were checking on those 3 young men, this guy would say that we don't have one, we're not here. Not crying. At home, that's how we got to where we are now. Cameras are everywhere. This thing has been occurring for a long time. Thanks to the advent, social media, modern technology, we're seeing a lot more. I never would have known, and you wouldn't have known what was going on right now in New York, St. Louis, Memphis, the local news stations, and they wouldn't cover that. So that's where we're at right now today. And so we're at a point in time in which not only the police department has to change their thought process. I submit to you, and I'm not going to get into this evening, public health also. Because we must work together for a common cause. And I view the police department as nothing more than the thread that is part of the fabric that holds this community together, not only this community, but other communities across the nation. Speaking for this one. I apologize. And I'm not going to take much longer, but the thing that I want to share with you is that when, we have community policing, hot shot policing. In New York, they came up with a concept that actually worked. Concept. We look at on a computer. We look at how many crimes are being committed and the times they're being committed and places and all that. It works good. But what happens when you go into a neighborhood and let's say, for instance, you're trying to take all the guns, whatever, guns off the street because they're doing a lot of shootings, gang activity, drug dealing. Okay, here's the deal. There's 100 people on that block. And you go in there and, SWAT team, and you knock the door down and do all this sort of thing. Okay, that's right. And those officers abuse and they misuse the other 99 individuals. You got one gun, you made one arrest. Guess what you did? You made 99 other that are not going to cooperate with the police. They're not going to talk to you. They're not going to do anything because they're not going to play the game. So the aggressive approach to policing, especially in communities such as the one that I've been walking door to door in all the businesses and the homes and stuff, it's got to stop. It has no place from what I can see in Yellow Springs. So you got to tone it down. Now, here's the problem. We do all these things and we make, the different names for whatever it is. And all of a sudden, the winner's not working. Winner's not going. And if Martin Luther King, he wrote a book, he once said, so once we fix these things, where do we go from here? And that's been a problem with policing for years, for the most part. when the windows fixed, what do we do? What do we do? And I submit to you that once, because crime fighting is only one element of policing, it's not everything. Some people measure an effective system solely based on the fact that, hey, no one got killed last year. That's ludicrous. I submit to you that crime fighting is in fact one portion of policing. When the window's no longer broken, that's when the police needs to step up to the plate and start engaging. And I hope you understand what I mean. You got to engage more. You got to get to a point, like I did this morning. You got to go to the senior citizen center and sit down and talk to some people. Those people have lived long lives. They have wisdom. They have guidance that they can give you. On the same token, I went to the name of the school, the superintendent of the school, or everyone is, and I like that. But those are the people that we need to start engaging. Are you the leaders of tomorrow? And if we miss it, guess what? They're going to be the person that is breaking into our homes, carjacking us, and all that kind of stuff. So we need to meet these people at an early, we need to be proactive as opposed to reactive. And with that thought in mind, I have that.
Thank you, that was very informative. You guys hear me? My mic on?
Sorry. So we're gonna open the floor up to questions and the Zoom callers up to questions. And we will have 45 minutes to ask questions of each of the candidates. And as I had stated earlier, you can ask the questions from something that you heard that one of them might have said. You can ask an individual question, or you can ask the question and have all three candidates answer that question. If we run out of time on this, we will have a brief meet and greet afterwards where you'll have the opportunity to speak to each candidate on a one-on-one basis as well. If you're in-house, we'd like you to jot your question down just so you can remember it and won't be a deer in the headlight like sometimes I get when I haven't jotted it down. And we'd like 3 to 4 people to come up in line at any one time. After the 4th person or the 3rd person, we will take a question from the Zoom audience, and then we'll have the next group of people come up to ask the question. That way, any of you won't have to stand too long at any one time. If you just had a knee replacement, I'll come to you. Even if it's not a knee replacement, if you just don't feel like standing up. So if we could get our first 4 people with questions to come up, of course, the mayor's leading the way there. I do want to open it up with a question that we got from the community, and this is for each of you, and that is, let me just say first, that if you answer the question with a story, or if you answer a question with an example, that's fine. It doesn't have to be yes or no, and it doesn't have to be black and white. You can color outside the lines. We give you permission. Tell the story behind it. Just don't tell the novel. We don't want to go from chapter to chapter. So the first question that we got from our Zoom audience is, as a leader, what is your vision for your policing team? Whoever wants to go first, this is where we should be.
So in my past, oh yes, of course, they do. So a lot of my experience is in team and organizational leadership. And I think that this question is important because one of the things that I would be shy about is that I'm sitting up here with a couple of folks who have a lot of experience in law enforcement. And I would be upfront and say that, you know, although I don't have a lot of experience in law enforcement, I do have a lot of experience in leadership and teams. And I think in leading teams, I have established that having a vision is one of the most important things. And so for me, my vision specifically for the Yellow Springs Police Department is one where every decision, every event, every act at the police department is in collaboration with the community. And what I mean by that is community policing all too often can be defined as a specific practice or a program. A lot of communities have bike patrol programs, a lot of communities have school programs, but true community policing, that would be a part of my vision, is actual collaboration with the community, coming to the table on problems and problem solving together. You know, there's not much that can be done with any one individual. I think my partners up here tonight will agree with that. And I think that philosophy is really the headliner for my vision for the currently, I can speak to special assignments and for auxiliary duties that I've begun assigning to team members with focus in schools, review, collaboration, and involvement. We have a bike patrol program that I'd like to see be all season, not all weather, rather than not be out in snow and things like that. We're going to get school liaison program bike patrol. We also have a business liaison. We have a health and wellness officer, which I'll take an opportunity later to address what I think the importance of that position is. And then all those programs, what they would accomplish as a part of my vision is being involved in touching every part of the village. So not just, you know, a bike patrol officer riding through a neighborhood, but that bike patrol officer stopping at local businesses, being able to say who each individual business owner is, or being able to problem solve together. So that's the foundation for my vision.
Thank you, candidate Page.
My vision will be more than the Yellow Springs Police Department, the leadership. We work for the community, we work for you. I would like for the community that is wide, well, and different cultures, come to us and teach us your culture. We did that in Belmont, and it was really great. There's some cultures that I didn't even know that we're not allowed to, we also aren't allowed to speak to women. Didn't know that. And there's some cultures that, and we also come in, you can't wear your shoes, didn't know that. So I would love to have the different cultures come to the police department for in service training to teach the officers that when we don't disrespect the community and disrespect, and we're still able to serve the community with professional policing that you expect from the police department. Candidate Page has a great ideas for the schools. I love that idea. We did that in Melbourne. And going and making contact with the kids, and sitting down with the kids, reaching out and just kind of a great lift on the kids. And then leaving my door open. I would put an open door policy. I like the open door policy. I want the community to come to the police department and be able to speak their mind. If they have a complaint or a compliment, come to us. We'd like to hear it. And if there is something that is a complaint, that would be able to report it. The officer, while we make sure that the officer gave credibility for their actions. There's no comment or misbehavior with this, and I'll show that.
Thank you.
my vision for the Yellow Springs Police Department is you ask any officer, whether they're brand new or a seasoned veteran, someone that's been there perhaps over 10, 12 years, what their job is, I can almost assure you they're going to tell you fight crime, force the laws, or if they say serve the care. So my vision simply is we're going to go beyond that. Because how great will the officers were to be able to say that I am going to protect the constitutional rights of all community members. Could you imagine that? When people are sworn in, I don't know who does the swearing in, whether it's the judge or the mayor or whatever the case may be, that is asked of the officers is whether or not you will protect and enforce the Constitution of the United States of America. So that would be my vision.
I have first been asked to make a public service announcement, which I'll do before I forget. Officer McQueen, I'm not sure what your rank is, sir?
Retired chief.
Retired chief.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, retired chief McQueen is no relation to citizen Stephen. Councilwoman, it's Councilwoman McQueen's sister. Let's see. No. It's a different spelling. Officer Salyers mentioned something that caught my attention, which was teach us your cultures, talking about cultures of different places. I wanted to get an early question in because I thought it would be a good one to start with. In a way, it's a softball, but in a way, it might be one of the most revealing questions that you'll hear tonight. And that question is, what do you know? And I'm going to ask Chief Burge to go last on this one. Start with the two on the other side. What do you know about the existing culture, aka the village of Yellow Springs? Let's pretend, if we will, we'll do this exercise. Ohio Magazine is doing outline a story on the top 10 villages in Ohio. Of course, Yellow Springs would be listed there. What might be, if you were writing this article, what might be some topics that you would be sure to mention? 10 or 12 sentences or themes or bullet points. We have a lot of questions here tonight. But what do you know about the existing culture and community of Yellow Springs?
Thank you, Mayor. The culture from when I lived in Yellow Springs, being in Grand County for years, is a very close-knit community, very wide culture, knit community, from same-sex to different races and religions. And that is a big thing for me to come and learn from every community that I can possibly and culture. So I come from, one of the things I do on my side is, as a hobby, is Ancestry.com. And I've traced my ancestry back to the 1700s. So far, I'm still working on it. And so I come from different types of cultures, German, Spanish, French, and I love that type of culture. And I'd like for that to continue to expand or as well. Multifaceted, high-tech, closely knit,
don't take any kind of crap from anyone, but put out red state. Vocal, sometimes outspoken. You're not going to sell them what do you call it, snacks. They don't check it if they have. And, but very engaging. This is one of the first places that I've ever been in, and I've been talking all day, yesterday. That if you speak to someone, they'll actually stop and they'll engage in conversation. And that is a beautiful thing. It really is. And that doesn't happen every day. I was shocked the first couple of times. I thought I had just got lucky and spoken with a couple of people. But just literally one. And so I don't know. This morning, near the school, there was I'll probably refer to where it's a young lady that was walking the dog. And she told me that her feet were hurting. And I said, guess what? Mine are too. I did a lot of walking. So that's my interpretation. It's a virtual melting pot, if you will. But people are not going to allow anyone to run over. That's, kudos to people.
Thank you. Next question, please.
Oh, page.
So if I had to describe the Ellsworth culture, I'm gonna start with kindness. We have a banner, hangs, different portions throughout the year. And that one word can define almost any person that I've met in Philadelphia Springs. Next, I would say inclusive. There's no question that we are demonstrably inclusive, without a doubt. There's no one here that will be turned away despite their socioeconomic status, their sexual orientation, their race. We're very diverse and inclusive community. And then the last thing I would say is engaged and passionate. The engagement and the passion, the amount of participation that every resident has a voice, and they want to make sure that that voice doesn't ever get silenced, that it has a voice to say. So.
Thank you.
Pam stole my question, that I'm going to react it in a way that focuses it more on the position that you're applying for. I'm Pam Wright. I've been here for 30 years, participated in athletes, chief committees, church committees, and I can think of two chiefs that we hired in the time I've been here who had deep experience in police work, and they weren't here very long. Their tenure here was less than successful. Did not know what they were getting into coming here. So I appreciated your sharing about knowing about the culture of our village. But I'd like for you to share, one of you is from Mississippi and Department of Homeland Security, a fairly conservative area, another from West Carrollton and Bellbrook, a couple of very conservative areas where maybe when the police make decisions, people say, okay. So I'd like you to take your knowledge of the culture of Yellow Springs and what you may know about the challenges that we would present and how you may differentiate your addressing your job as chief and as a police officer, how that may be different than what you've done in the past. And Paige is very aware of our village and the challenges. So I'm going to rephrase it for you to what's different between corporate loss prevention and the majority of your career and between the public and the psychiatrist. So, and also as a nurse who's worked purely in COVID, I can share that the distance that you are, you don't need to wear masks. You don't want to. Say it.
I'm saying the difference between police work and Department of Homeland Security.
The question is specifically, how would your approach different to your job how would your approach be different to your job leasing a village like Yellow Springs, and what you know about it, compared to your approach to the department you worked in before coming here? How would your approach be? How would your interaction with people, how would your...
Pam, that's good.
I can say beyond the reasonable doubt, there's not going to be a difference. I'm surveying between the police chief. I'm not going to do anything any differently here than I try to accomplish in my former agency. I believe in engaging, I believe in transparency, I believe in police doing what they're supposed to police, okay? And that means that I've changed many times. It was raining outside and I saw the little lady out there from Baltimore that had, she had her Sunday best on. I'm looking down anyway, so when I was in the patrol division, I pulled over. I said, "Ma'am, we don't have to get out." And she's, remember, said, "No, we're gonna get wet." That's what I get paid. But she did hold me on the road in my head. I changed the tire. I had to go home and change clothes because I got drenched wet. I believe in making a community so safe that the elderly, young people, that they don't have to worry about being shot. You know, when they're sitting on the porch and leaving the time, I believe in those things. I would think it'd be different. I mean, I'd be engaging, I'd have an open, transparent department. And guess what? Every now, you're gonna make mistakes. I can assure you of that because with human beings, or evil. So no one's gonna ever be perfect. But the thing is, I can make excuses. We're gonna say, "Hey, we messed up," and we're gonna look at it. You know what? We don't have to walk the roof. We don't have to. We're gonna fix that in time. So the chief does. He looks at whatever the mistake is, and he fixes it. He rights it wrong.
Thank you.
So one thing that Chief King said that I will agree with is that it won't be much different. And the reason for that is because I know who I am, regardless of where I work. If I change the way that I approach criminal justice, whether that be in law enforcement or in the private sector in asset protection, then what I've been doing is catering to public opinion. The meat you've had for 3 years is the meat you get. The transparency, the kindness, the community engagement. Although your question specific for me was about how asset protection kind of translates into that. So with my experience in asset protection, that's where I learned to talk to people. You know, in law enforcement, you got to use force, and you can justify it. You can use force to make something fire. You didn't have that luxury in the private sector. It's where I learned to talk. It's where I learned to empathize. It's where I learned to have a conversation about what's going on. And I think that those things translate into police work, and specifically police work here, because the community does expect more from this police agency as far as use of force, transparency, accountability. So, short answer is, I'm still just.
Thank you. Candidates, again, I'm going to ask you to speak. I know it's like you're swallowing this microphone, but I'm going to ask you to speak really close to the mic because our Zoom audience is having a little harder time hearing you. All right? Candidate Keith?
So the way that I would handle policing here in Yellow Springs would be that just like Belbrook, Yellow Springs has very resemblance to Belbrook. And how we policed in Belbrook is the community. We reached out to the community. It's very program oriented with the community. And when we go on a call, And I would implement this here, keep everything the same, but also ensure that when we show up on call, we're showing up to help you. And if that is reaching out to different types of social activities or programs, counseling, we're going to help whatever we can to ensure that we give the citizens of Yellow Springs the help that they need. I try to work on the side of helping the citizens versus going down the road of a criminal act and locking them up. You're not going to end up having success with the citizens at that time. If you reach out and give them programs and counseling, you're getting that first aspect of helping them and trying to get through their problems.
Thank you. Thank you. We have a seated question now.
Thank you. My name is Bill Randolph, part of the search committee, but I'm asking this question of you three on behalf of John Gudgel and the 365 Project. He contacted me and asked me to ask these two questions, if I may. One question is, young people of color in Yellow Springs have shared that there have been instances where they felt they have been profiled by the police. What are ways in which officers can receive training on implicit bias, and how would you handle these types of concerns? That's the first question.
Okay. Anybody? Close to the mic.
So as far as racial profiling or racism, there's no tolerance under my leadership or in my beliefs. One of the things that I failed to, and that's my fault, and to let you know, is that I have an African-American uncle. I have 3 biracial cousins, love them dearly. My uncle was a military police, and I go to him first. A lot of answers, very knowledgeable young man. He even taught here at Antioch years ago. And as far as my other cousins, they are great. They have their own family, and they actually come to me for help. And if they're violated, and I can listen, hey, Matt, you need to go to the police, you need to do this. And don't get me wrong, Matt has had this problem with the police and racial profiling that you speak about. And I told you, if you would like, I would love to go with you to the police department to prevent that action from happening. Because there is no tolerance in racial profiling and under my beliefs for police work. Thank you.
So, everyone, if we're honest, and there's been studies on this, that have been collected. Everyone has biases. Okay, whether it's gender, race, sexual orientation, whatever the case may be. So long as it doesn't rise to a level in which it affects one's job, there's not a whole lot we should do that. In the event that it becomes a problem or you see a problem, it's up to the administration to monitor things like this. And I'm giving you this example. I had, without giving too much information, I had an extremely educated person that ended another career in the military. And he joined the force. And this guy went out and every on monthly reports, every one that he stopped, everyone that he wrote a ticket, everyone that he arrested. I saw this reoccurring identity buildings, beating black people, saying it like it is, for a whole month. So what I ended up doing is I called this officer into my office along with the shift leader. I don't even blame the officer, it's his shift leader. You know, if I saw it, why did he not see it? So when I called him in, I asked, the officer himself, I said, what is this? I said, you're working 12-hour shifts and the only person you saw run a red light or the only person that had a warrant was like black males that are serious. And so here was my remedy for it, is that I moved him, or caused him to be moved from that area to another area, in which, you know, for the most part, there were no black men. And I waited until the end of the month, and I hit the button, and I'm like, what was going on here? Nothing came up. And there was absolutely nothing. So I called this gentleman, as well as his shift leader, into the office, and I said, okay, this guy normally writes a book of tickets, a 12-hour shift. Can't make this step up. And when he was moved into another sector or section of town, there was literally no activity whatsoever. And I asked him, I said, what's the problem? And he said, there is no problem. I said, yeah, we got a problem. Because I believe in equal, equitable law enforcement across the board. You see someone, if you're going to write tickets, you're on traffic, detail, or whatever the case may be, then you write tickets. I don't care what the people look like. If you're not going to write tickets, don't write tickets. Well, when this was brought, you know, to his attention, and this, again, you can't make this step up. 2 weeks later, he was gone by. Later. So the short version is, supervisors, administration, whatever, you set the tone, and you know, I'm not going to put up. I don't care who you are. I'm not going to do it. You're not.
Thank you.
So I want to talk about the systemic issue that's at play with this specific question. And it's a much larger issue because, Mr. Randolph, if in your question, if I recall correctly, did you specifically say that problem occurred here in Yellow Springs, or they just said that was
That was a question that young people of color.
young people who live in Yellow Springs, they may have had experiences outside or inside. I just want to make sure that I understand that. So when you look at the greater issue with the systemic issue, disparities in healthcare, education, access to the same things that other classes or other races might have access to. We have to understand that by just saying, well, we're going to train a specific officer, we're going to offer training to a team, that's not enough. You have to get clear and concise direction on something that will actually change. For example, pretextual stops for non-safety related issues. This is a practice that began under Carlson that I supported from the get-go. I remember conversing, having a very healthy conversation among the rank and file about this very thing and why it was important, and trying to educate people, especially from a position of, although not a minority, I am a member of a marginalized group. And, you know, no one understands an oppressor like the oppressed. And so for me, I felt it was my obligation to kind of educate the officers that I work with on why it's important that we eliminate protection stops for non-safety related issues. So that's just one example of continued work that will occur, you know, under me as a chief.
Thank you. Next question, please.
Mr. McQueen, this is a question for you. You shared that you had the same experiences professionally as the other candidates, but I want to know your experiences as a candidate tonight. And I'd also like to know, you said you were a police chief, you retired, why you retired, and also if you would share the kind of community that you were police chiefing in.
Okay, February 18th, 1988, I joined the Columbus, Mississippi Police Department after approximately two and a half years was transferred to the detectives division or investigative division. I rose through the ranks of corporal, sergeant, lieutenant. I researched this. I scored higher than all my peers. Unfortunately, but anyway, I moved on. I mean, I headed the criminal investigations division. I was the chief of detectives. I had worked in or led every department within the police department. I've also been the training director, the director of the academy. I've been, state certified, 11, 12 different disciplines, ranging from CPR to NAMS 3,400 on the federal level, all kinds of things, ethics, I've headed the community relations division. I've been the public information officer. I mean, the list goes, I've done it all. I've done it all. I became the chief of police, or the interim chief of police, on about, I think, 2012, and became the chief shortly thereafter. And my reason for leaving, honestly, is that I felt as though under the circumstances I had given all that I could give, and it comes a point in legal life when you look at all the other potential leaders that are should be prepared upward mobility, or they should be prepared to climb the corporate ladder. Leaders shouldn't die in office. And there will come a time as to where, when it's time for you to move on, but it's best for you as well as the agency. Could I have still been there? Literally, no doubt about it. But anyway, when I left that glorious life, I moved on to a TSA for a year. And I was going, honestly, I was going to leave a lot quicker, but, I got old-fashioned moral values, and I said, you know what, I better stay here for at least a year before I leave. So I went through all that training, passed all that stuff, and I'm eligible for rehire if I want to go back, but it just was not my cup of tea. Now, maybe there's some other things I hope I answered. Okay, great.
Will you explain the kind of community that you were the chief of?
At times, it could be a war-torn zone. And I've been here since yesterday, and I've not heard about one shot I heard. It's simply amazing. In certain sections of the city, it mirrors those rooms. In certain sections of the community, there is, because of things that I've already mentioned, especially now. But people just don't trust me. I mean, and they're not going to talk to me. When I was there, we had perhaps the lowest crime rate. The lowest crime rate for a long time. It was lower. I went through phases, okay? When I first became the interim chief of police, the city was under siege. 48 hours and all these other nationally syndicated shows were in town because we had elderly people being murdered and someone messed up, and whether it wasn't chief there, but they said it's a serial murder. So all these people started coming in, and during this, it's a long story. We had a chief that ended up going to the penitentiary, is a lot of different things. And so when the dust cleared, then, you know, I gotta be honest, there were people there that, were not in support of the Queen climbing the corporate ladder as and there were times, you know, people would try to place stumbling blocks in my way, but I thank God, you know, that he allowed me to go around those, and I became the chief of police. And I know that I left the place in a lot better shape than I found. Again, I was the first, whatever you want to call it, Black African American, whatever, chief that they had. So, you know, top of Mississippi, it had its challenges. Our gross communication, crime rate was down. People started engaging the police. They started engaging people, and that happened since 1998 when I got here. I never saw anything like that. One of the things I'll tell you this that I did is develop a survey instrument, send it out. I wanted the officers to know how the public perceived it.
Thank you very much. We're going to take a question from a member from our Zoom audience.
Right, I do have a question from Zoom from the villagers. What is your disposition toward the increasingly common practice of citizen oversight, as in the Citizen Review Board, CRB, and also your disposition toward restorative justice practices? And that's for all. Yes. What is your disposition toward the increasingly common practice of citizen oversight, right? The Citizen Review Board. And also, what is your disposition toward restorative justice practices?
If you're familiar.
So the conversation about citizen review boards has been a hot topic in the village of Yellow Springs, definitely recently, but I'm sure there's background in that. As I just began my research in the last, I'd say several weeks, looking into specific types of models, there's more than half a dozen types of citizen review boards. I'm a proponent of citizen oversight. I think accountability and transparency in any way, shape, or form is a good thing, and it's a good thing for law enforcement. I recently worked with a committee of citizens here to develop a application for use for our body on camera initiative. We'll be ready to present that initiative to council very shortly, but another transparency tool or an oversight tool, not specifically CRP related, but similar in nature to transparency. I think they're important when you're talking about community policing, which is something that I've discussed several times tonight. You know, community policing isn't just one practice, it's the entire community working to resolve everything. It's the communities policing with the police and understanding that they are factors in decision making. Their opinion and their feedback shape the transformational years ahead for law enforcement. With that said, another factor of community policing, I don't believe you can truly say you practice community policing if you don't practice restorative justice. So tools that we have here, such as our management, tools such as, the programs I mentioned earlier, are special assignments where it's strictly about engaging with community members. These are all important tools and things that I support achieving that we can.
Thank you.
So for oversight,
Close to the mic.
so as far as oversight review boards, that's one thing that we did not have in Belbrook. I did do some studying with the review boards and their jobs, and I am very 100% for review boards and panels. Not only does it the community gets to put their input on what has happened within the police department, but it also gives them the opportunity to voice their opinion on how they would like to see the outcome if there was an incident, and we can share with them the law aspect of it and the prosecution side of it, and we all work as one big community to come to a happy resolution. And I'm very pro the review board. As far as justice, reform, if someone is having an addiction problem, I know that being in Green County for 24 years, there's a lot of help within the county to reach out for the addiction aspect, TCN, and other type of behavioral aspects to help the individual come over their addiction or subside from their addiction. And that's one thing that will from it as well.
Thank you.
I'm in favor, I'm not against, but I'm at a loss here. It works, but I mean, you gotta change our mental state and allow at some point the chief of police to do his or her job also. You know, if you got a chief, afford them an opportunity to fix what's wrong. And then if they don't do their job, I understand, I'm not saying that I'm against it, but allow, a lot of things can be handled internally. And if it's not handled, then you handle the chief of police. That's the way I look at it. And I'm not against a oversight committee or whatever the case may be. Now, it's interesting that you mentioned, or whoever it is mentioned, restorative justice. I'm in favor of that. And I'm also in favor of, I just have to have this with me, when people do get in trouble with these police, we've got to respect those people also. Just because bad things happen sometimes to people, okay? We all make mistakes. So, as part of, with that thought in mind, right after I'm gonna make this real quick, but Dr. whomever it was, and the state representative, whoever, and another person, maybe the local attorney, we put our hands together and we developed a project, if you will, in which we were doing the best that we could to prevent recidivism. People that have, you know, done the wrong things, they can come back, or in essence, that was just a portion of it. But the other part was if someone, you know, made a mistake, they didn't kill anyone, and it wasn't capital murder, that sort of thing, then the judge would have the option to sentence that person to this program. And if the person successfully completed the program, then they didn't have to go to the penitentiary. They could get their high school diploma, or whatever the case may be, earn a trade, whether it be welding, auto mechanics, and some other things. But we didn't get the funding for it, but I still got it for what that's worth. So, yes, I'm in favor.
Thank you. Next question, please. We're doing really well on time. We have about 25 minutes.
All right, so my question is a little bit different from your page. It was recently reported that you were not running for the chief position. What made you change your mind? And when did you decide to apply? For the other candidates, I'd like to know how you heard about the job and what draws you to Yellow Springs.
How I heard about the position was through Indeed. And I did a lot of research from your website, along with the police website and the policies and procedures that are on the website as well. And all the things that I saw is very close to the city of Boulder. And honestly, it's better than Boulder. And that draws my attention. I'm very happy to apply and get it as far for you guys.
So for me, it would have been, if memory serves me correctly, Lincoln, and what draws me to Yellow Springs, it's a dream. If you knew where I started and where I came from, the more I read, the more interested I became. In actually meeting the people in Yellow Springs. I bought some Yellow Springs here today. So it's kind of probably kind of hard to get rid of it after that. I'll just be honest with you.
So, I'm sorry. And so my question was specific about what changed my mind. So when I was promoted to sergeant, which, forgive my timeline, I'll say August. I think it was day one, if I'm not mistaken, which way you can correct me. I just shined this new badge up, very proud, ready to make a change inside the department. And it was announced to me that Chief Carlson was resigning, who was a big part of the reason why I enjoyed working for Yellow Springs so much, because our philosophies align. So it was quite intimidating to know that, that position would be open. So it was of no consideration to me, obviously, in that moment. As I got my feet sturdy and got my sea legs, so to speak, in the sergeant's position, I got more comfortable. A lot of administrative responsibility in that role. A lot of things I was very familiar with from past roles. So although specifics had to be learned, technicalities, I fell right into it with ease and felt like I executed that role well. The opportunity to take the interim chief role was there because I don't believe the candidate was selected by the time that Chief Carlson was ready to leave. So I accepted that with open arms, thinking what a great opportunity it would be, and just thinking, I'll just make sure the place doesn't burn down until they find somebody, so to speak. And then I fell in love with it. I absolutely have a passion for leadership. I think I've mentioned this at some point in this time frame that law enforcement is a legacy career if you're good at it. You treat people well, with respect, with dignity, you leave behind a legacy. Leadership in law enforcement is the ultimate legacy, because you get to lead and teach and educate others to do the things that you're passionate about and that you believe in. And when you can have that influence over a group of people, I think, teams buy into leaders and then they buy into vision. So my vision aligns with the community, I feel, and so I think it's the ultimate legacy to be able to leave behind. Another thing is, I got quite a career ahead of me. I thought, this is what's I'm gonna shoot for inevitably. And the last several chiefs have offered up 3, 4, 5 years, with one being extremely tenured. And I thought, I have that talk with the community long career. So.
Next question, please. First of all, it's really humbling to have this group of candidates. That's truly from my heart, sincerely, very humbling. Anyway, Yellow Springs, I'm trying to say we are not of a militarized mindset. So we don't have that mindset, we don't have that comprehension, and we don't have that philosophy in the village. Not all of us do have that, and that's okay, that's good, that's what police do like it. Policing is very structured. It's a structured awareness of safety, protocol, prevention, regulation, temperament of a population. This is a very diverse population. So without our comprehension of a militarized or policing philosophy or mindset, I'm trying to figure how each of you would balance the relationship with the fraternal order of the police, and your strong relationship to a fraternal order of police, a mindset of policing, and understanding and comprehension of militarization and the need for oversight and leadership in that way, with who we are as a pacifist-oriented, inclusive-oriented, diversity-oriented group of villages. Wow. Go.
So, the short version is that village, Yellow Springs, they're not going to be hiring the internal orders or whatever it is, of the police department. They will be hiring a surveying company, and I will do what's in the best interest of Yellow Springs. Now, and I alluded to this earlier concerning the aggressive tactics and that sort of thing. It's police work is here in the military, right? In a sense. But through training, especially when the new recruits come out, and I was told this the entire time that I was in the academy. They would tell me, they said, son, as soon as you get out and you come back to Columbus, you're going to have to forget over half of that stuff that you learned. And the reason being, community's not going to do it. Okay? Every time you pull over a car, and they'll tell you, the first thing they tell you, you know, you get your gun, you grill the pie, or slice the pie, and all that kind of stuff. And you can't do that. I mean, if it's an 80 or a 90-year-old male or female or something like that, who are you going to out and slice the pie and see how many times that's going to work? See how that works. You're going to be on the board. So that's it in a nutshell. We're going to do what's right. And I keep saying, and this is going to be redundant. Community, citizenry, they want justice. They want to see justice. That's the bottom line.
Thank you.
As far as the FOP, in my career, 32 years, I've never had an easy FOP. The FOP comes in with different types of behavioral issues within the police department. That is when they handle that side. It's like a union type of thing. As far as the review board under my leadership will be totally involved as far as any type of incident, and also they will be abreast of what's going on within the police department as well. As far as the military type structure, as far as that is like more, if I'm out on the scene and I see Sergeant Page, I'm going to address her as Sergeant Page. And that's just respect for her title and position that she put in. But if I'm also out dealing with the individuals and citizens of the community, I'm going to address them as certainly. And as far as that's respect to everyone, not here in just Yellow Springs, but anywhere in the community of any sort. You hired the police department for us to serve you, and again, that's what we're going to do. And we're going to do it with kindness, and we're going to do it with compassion, and there will not be any to stop us past it, so to speak. It will be open door policy, transparency, work with the community, and for us to build a stronger and happy relationship with the police and the community.
So I love this question because it always brings up a pretty commonly used comparison that you'll hear in law enforcement and in the military. So maybe some of you have heard of guardian versus warrior. Anyone ever heard that mindset before? So there's this notion that officers are either a guardian mindset or a warrior mindset when it comes to policing. And that mindset is based in both are protectors but do so in different ways. So oftentimes, females will get pigeonholed as guardians because we're natural protectors. We have a mothering instinct and what have you. And you'll have other folks who have interests in drugs and maybe more dangerous type stuff that identify themselves as warriors. But the truth is that there is no police officer that should have the mindset of anything but that of a guardian. Warriors are more likened to the military. Because they come in, they take over a place and do what needs to be done. And I'm not saying that's not necessary even for any country. Guardians protect the community from within. They're members of that community. They're stakeholders. And so that is the difference, and that's the way that it's the mindset that I lead with currently. In addition to that, I think police culture is also a very strong thing that has to be discussed when you're talking about mindsets. And can have a lot of power and control over any agency. And so for me, I try to lead with upside down pyramid concept, if anyone's ever kind of heard of that, where it's many chiefs from the bottom up. Everyone's empowered and has the autonomy to make decisions, make change, engage with the community. And I think these are things that kind of prevent that military style hierarchy from being so important and us relying on that. There's always something to be said about structure, but that's with any line of work. You have to have a little more structure to make sure that things run appropriately. But the military style, we're guardians, not warriors.
These have been excellent questions, guys, and we're doing a great job, and we've been here a moment. So I want everybody to take a deep breath in, let it out. If you can stand up and wiggle. If you can't stand up, wiggle in your chairs, take your legs out, move your arms around, and we'll finish this up on a run, all right? There you go. Breathe in, breathe out. Make it happen. Oh, Mary, you almost started something there. Okay, our next question, please. Thank you.
This is a two-part question. The first question would be a yes or no answer, and I'm asking to know, expound on I'll ask my question that you can expound on. The first one is, walking down the street as police chief in the Yellow Spring, asked you, we'll go down like this. Is there such thing as race? Is there such thing as race?
Yes.
Is there such thing as race?
Yes.
This question, I believe, was answered already by the candidate, but just everyone can answer it. Do you think serious police violations should be investigated internally or by an outside independent investigative body?
Okay. You never investigate your own. If they're being investigated, it's by an outside agency.
Next, yes, thank you.
And I kudos, and I agree fully with the candidate. Anytime that there's an incident within the police department that is serious, under my leadership, the state of Ohio Bureau of Criminal Investigation will investigate that and will assist them with anything that they need with their investigation. Thank you.
Criminal matters, of course, will be investigated by outside agencies, whereas internal matters, I think, can be handled by any other way that we kind of resolve problems in the community, and that's together. We can refer back to the CRB and things like that. I think those would come in handy when it comes to procedural and or policy violations, things that can be internally investigated.
Thank you. We have a follow-up kind of question that relates to that I'd like to read, and it's in regards to your leadership style. Do you support tracking of race, class, gender biases in performance evaluations for officers and staff? Do you support tracking of race, class, or gender biases in performance evaluations of your rank and file officers?
So I'll go first. If I could ask just a clarifying question. So if you identify a bias at bay, documenting that in an evaluation, correct?
That's what I'm understanding. And whoever wrote the question is welcome to elaborate.
And the answer is yes.
As far as evaluation of the officers, they're going to be evaluated on their work performance. They're not going to be evaluated by their race. They're not going to be evaluated by bias. They're going to be evaluated by their work performance, and they'll have a goal set to improve that officer.
Okay, let me try to explain it differently. If there's been a violation by the officer that look towards bias, that they did something that was, that they saw, a race, that they did something, race violation, gender violation, would that go into their evaluation report?
Yes, it would. It would be also investigated, and departmental would handle that internally with disciplinary action.
They're not going to be eligible to take the test for promotion.
Okay. Now, I'm just reading this, right? Well, but the way that I'm reading it is that, do you support tracking? It's kind of like the evaluation that you did of the one officer, tracking what they're doing and if it's coming back as that.
Yes.
We have a question from our Zoom audience member.
I have a question from Jill Eagleton, wanting to know the candidate's position on using body cameras.
It's a must. For many different reasons. It'll lower the village's cost associated with defending lawsuits. It's a win-win situation. If you got rogue officers that are doing the wrong thing, and we've seen news reports where people don't always activate their body cams, but they better, otherwise they're going to be working somewhere else. We're not going to be so gung-ho to jump in there and get things started and do the wrong things when we know that there's an eye, I refer to it as an eye in the sky. The public, as well as the administration, they can hear what we are saying, they can see what we're doing. You can't go wrong. I support it all.
I support it 100%. We had body cameras in Belgrade, and it lowered our officer complaint investigations down, and it also, we were able to have transparency through the internal investigation with that individual that would come in and review the camera footage, and they would drop a complaint because they didn't know that it was being recorded at the time. I fully support cameras and body cameras being worn. And as far as altering the cameras, turning it off and on, that would be a disciplinary issue that came to the court.
So I touched briefly on this earlier. Actually been working with the past from week 6 now with a committee of citizen members on the surveillance use application to actually have body cameras. So I've heard citizens' concerns, and I'm a proponent of body-worn cameras so long as there are no issues or any kind of privacy issue. So we've worked pretty diligently over the last 6 weeks to ensure that those issues were addressed, and hopefully we have an excellent proposal for the council.
We have time for 2 more questions.
Thank you, candidates. Free speech and demonstrating are very important to people in Yellow Springs. Will you have a high tolerance for technical violations of the law by people who, for example, are marching in the streets without a permit or other technical violations when expressing their free speech rights? Thank you.
Thank you.
Should I answer this, or should I just say, see current work? Is that me causing that issue? I'm sorry. Okay. Over the first COVID summer, I think that's how we refer to things now rather than 2020 and 2021. Over the first COVID summer, we have a very active community. I've mentioned that several times. And we had a group of Black Lives Matter protesters who took to the streets. And our main goal was their safety. So we are not concerned about the fact that there's no permit. We're not concerned about the fact that a roadway was taken. Our concern was keeping that group of individuals, citizens of our community, safe. And so we acted appropriately. We made sure that they were escorted to the best of our ability, and we continue to do that. We take that route on Martin Luther King Day as well, and they marched with Laura on that last one there. So the answer to your question is, in regards to free speech and demonstrations, you know, so, I'm sorry, tolerance, yes, tolerance. I suppose that would be high tolerance, is that the?
Freedom of speech and demonstration is part of the U.S. Constitution, everyone's right to do so. And I would have a high tolerance along with this, police department, with Yellow Springs. And again, I agree with Kennedy and Page, protecting those protesters to ensure that they're safe and they don't get harmed. For example, would be bypasser driving by, throwing a bottle or trash at them. We're going to make sure that they're safe and they don't get harmed when they speak their piece.
Absolutely.
Okay. For the evening.
Question was handed to me. This question was handed to me. Is anyone having difficulty? Okay, we're good. So, do you believe that there should be a standard procedure, a protocol implemented with every suspect before they are charged and or arrested? Do you believe that there should be a standard procedural protocol implemented with every suspect before they are charged and or arrested?
I'll go first on this one. As far as the standard protocol for a suspect being interviewed or before taken into custody, they're going to be treated with compassion, they're going to be treated with respect, and they're going to be treated as a human being. I want the interviews and practices of the individual as if I'm talking to my brother, I'm talking to my mother. That's the way that I have for dealing with suspects on the road. And when I was at Bellbrook, when I would arrest an individual road guy after doing a field sobriety test, I would say, listen, there was a choice made tonight on your behalf, and there was a bad choice made, and the field sobriety test indicated that there's signs that you are impaired, that you're not safe to drive. The individual would shake his head or vocalize yes. Tell me, this is what we're going to do. We're going to take you into custody. We're going to transport you out of the police department, bring you up to home, and give you the opportunity to take your blood test. And then I'll have you make a phone call and have stipend and take your blood test. That's respect. That's being honest and that's being transparent. And when they leave, 9 times out of 10, they shake your hand or tell you thank you. And that goes a long way. And as far as protocol, as far as approaching the suspect, it's always going to be different. You might have a suspect laying down crying, and you got to address why they're crying, and you got to be compassionate, you got to show empathy, and then address the issues from there. And then you might have another suspect that might be quiet and not answering, and then you're going to have to work through your de-escalation tools to get them to talk to you. Find a common ground that you see that you can open up and have them talk with you. Thank you.
So I'm trying to understand the root of this question so I can answer it the best way possible. So when we talk about standard practices or procedures as it pertains to the handling of if you're going to make a physical arrest and or a summons arrest under those circumstances. There are certain circumstances where those standards and practices do have to be followed. When you're talking about violent witnesses and keeping people safe, things like that, there are specific policies, procedures, practices that have to be followed. But I will be very hesitant to say that you can follow standard practice or procedure or policy for every single possible arrest you can make, because then you're removing the ability to effectively execute some of these things we talked about tonight. Some of these restorative justice, alternative approaches, non-punitive approaches, those things would be taken off the table if you had a structured standard approach to every situation. So I would be hesitant to say yes, with exception to the absolute violent offenses.
I don't know if it pertains to here or not, but there should be a standard operating procedure manual. I don't know if you've heard of it as an SOP that outlines the guidelines as to what it is that police officers should and should not do. I don't know if that's written in the actual village policy or within the police department's policy. I'm accustomed to having a manual, and it gives you the do's and don'ts of police work. If you follow the manual, you're fine. And if the manual has to be voted on by the mayor and city council as well as legal counsel, it's what I'm accustomed to. And again, it outlines exactly what it is that you can and you can't do. And I've had occasion to write those for other agencies. I've actually had training in that respect. I've written them, and people have purchased them. I'll leave it at that. But I thought everyone did that.
Thank you. Well, guess what? Our time is up for the question and answering session. You guys did an awesome job in your questions. You did an awesome job in your answers. Everyone, yes. Put your right hand in the air, please. Touch your left shoulder. Pat yourselves on the back. You did a real good job. So we're going to close this session with each candidate. We'll give a 2-minute or less closing remark as to their position. Thank you.
Well, again, thank you all. Thank everybody for coming out tonight. It's great to see some new faces that I'm familiar with, and hopefully we'll continue working with in this capacity. I just want to say the thing that's most important for me to leave you with is that I care about this community, invested in this community, and I am very passionate about the work that I hopefully can accomplish in the future in this school year. So if granted that opportunity, I hope I get a chance to prove that to each and every one of you. So thank you all for coming out. There's nothing better than people who are invested in their community that want to make a change. And I can do that with you.
Thank you, everyone, for coming out. Thank you, manager and president, for having me here, and monitor, Jayln Roe. Thank you. I want to say that I've learned a lot here tonight, and a lot of everything that I've heard meets the vision that I have for the police department and the community to come together as a tight-knit community. And I'm going to be as transparent as possible with the community and with the people as well. And you will have a stronger police department. You will have a closer knit police department with the community under my leadership. And I'm looking forward to my training experience to working with Jayln Springs. And Jayln Springs is 100 times more over the city of Jayln. We should be proud of that. Thank you.
And so the question was asked earlier. I don't see the gentleman who asked it, but he asked concerning the young man and whether or not we bought those quote-unquote race. And I answered yes. The reason being, I believe in the human race. I believe in the principles of justice. I believe that the law should be treated equally, equally, but not at all. every now and then, someone out there, probably in here on Zoom, they're probably saying, well, hey, why McQueen? Why should we choose him? And I heard this all day long. You're going to be asked whether or not you can fit in. And I'll tell you, McQueen can fit in anywhere. And the reason being, I want to share this with you. There comes a point in time in every organization, perhaps, where it becomes stagnant. And it's at that point that new blood needs to be infused so that we can have a new set of eyes, a new set of ears, and I represent those things. Not slighting these people, I think they're wonderful people. I've heard some great things from them. But if you want a new set of eyes, you want a new set of ears, you want law enforcement, I see you back there now, headed in a direction, in a different direction, then let me captain the ship. I'll say it. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates.
Thank you, candidates. I'm really impressed with every single one of you. Thank you. Thank you for the commitment to be here and for your very insightful responses. Thank you all for joining us tonight. As you can see, these are well-qualified individuals. It's not going to be an easy choice. So I need your feedback. The way that I want to collect your feedback is Team McQueen's back there. By the way, no relationship to McQueen. Please, on your way out, you can give us your survey. We'll collect those surveys and tally that feedback. And we'll use that feedback in our deliberation and next episode. For everyone here, for the public that are watching, what are the next steps? You've heard from the candidates. We'll have interviews. We have a set of interviews scheduled tomorrow with council, myself, with members of the police department, members of mediation, the mayor, and citizens. And those will be both door meetings. We have a different set of questions in the interview process. So long day ahead of you, so get some rest. And after those interviews, I will convene with the different groups, collect the feedback, we'll deliberate and make a decision. Hopefully in the next 2 weeks, we'll be reaching back out to one of the candidates and start working on the process. Yes, for the audience on Zoom, Philip, do you have the URL?
It's already there.
Okay, all right. So for those that are on Zoom, Philip has posted a link on the chat, in the chat box. You can click that link and that takes you to the online survey.
How long do they have to respond?
We will be collecting feedback through the week. So I really just to get the feedback. We'll start reviewing the feedback as early as tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. I have a meeting with council, all council members are part of the interview, and I know at least one of them wants to see some of that preliminary data, see how the residents, business owners, all of the constituents have responded to the candidates. Any other questions?
We thank you. Don't wait a week to fill that paperwork out. Send that in so you can remember what it is that you heard. And you're welcome to stay for a little while and just talk amongst yourselves or speak with our candidates. We thank you again for your participation. It's the Yellow Springs way.
Yes, it is. Thank you. The other thing the Yellow Springs News, I know Jessica was here, Yellow Springs News provided a set of questions that have been posted online. So all the candidates provided responses to the set of questions. That material is available online, so is the resume and your bios. Thank you all for coming up.